Sour grapes? Sour grapes. All right. Okay, listen, guys. I like Larry David. I do. I swear. He was a pioneer and he revolutionized the modern television sitcom. Tom, you said it last week. The guy had a vision and he genuinely changed TV. I was a huge fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Max and I used to get together with our respective significant others and have Curb watching evenings. We even wrote a spec script for the show with a supporting role for Judge Reinhold. I'm telling you, Max and I would even hum the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme during our many stumblebum adventures to punctuate the very moment when the general atmosphere would turn against us. To be clear, I am a Larry David fan. Cook, can we just do the Curb theme real quick here? Want to take it with me?
Oh, sorry. And...
No, that's right.
Right, ready? And... Boom, boom, boom. Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can't believe you brought up that script. I totally forgot we wrote that.
We did. We wrote a spec script. Larry runs off, Cheryl runs off on up to the love ride on the back of a motorcycle and leaves Larry alone to try to buy a baby present.
Yeah, it was some of the most fun I've ever had with you, and I completely blocked it from my memory. So find the file and post it on the cutting room site.
I will. But listen, if I may just cut to the chase, LD's unfortunate issue is that he's become something of a one-note song, a stale chord. All right, that's 3 notes, but LD is a true artist, and as such, he is able to express his unique point of view, his theme, consistently throughout his body of work. David accomplishes this. However, what separates, in my book, the average artist from the extraordinary is their ability to communicate this theme through an evolving process, one that changes and grows. A true artist can repackage and retell their theme, their same message, in new and different and exciting ways. Larry don't do so good with this. Clear History and Sour Grapes, the 2 movies that he penned of the 3 on this exploration of LD, are just simple regurgitations of Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld episodes. As we discussed last week, Clear History is an elongated version of an episode of Curb with lots of HBO money and fun cameos. And I love Michael Keaton, I love Ham, but there was just nothing new. David's reoccurring theme is just simple and obvious. At their very core, humans are selfish, greedy assholes who make ridiculous, impulsive decisions and then spend the rest of their days paying for it. Well, to his credit, I think he's right on target with that. But when Woody Allen tackles essentially the same theme in Whatever Works, he just kind of nails it. Allen finds in his own unique voice and style a philosophical dialogue on the subject of this self-centered human egotism. Sour Grapes, by way of contrast, is nothing more than an elongated version of an episode of Seinfeld. Steven Webber is a variation of Jerry Seinfeld to Craig Bierko's Kramer. The plot is vapid and unbelievable, and I shudder to think of even breaking it down. Just suffice to say, David's ongoing theme is received loud and clear. One selfish, greedy bastard pitted against the other selfish, greedy bastard. But in the case of Sour Grapes, the plot device is so thin, it's so ridiculous that the payoff is really just a big bowl of who the fuck cares. Listen, for those who haven't seen it, Webber gives 2 quarters to his cousin Bierko, who wins a moderately large jackpot with him. Webber believes he's due his share. Bierko disagrees. You see where this is going, right? Out of frustration, Webber in a passive-aggressive manner sets in motion a wholly unbelievable chain of events that continue to escalate in a ridiculous fashion. At one point, while insisting that he drops the subject, Webber's wife points out that he's a brain surgeon and therefore does not need the money. Yet later we see Webber operating on a man's testicles. What? Why is a brain surgeon cutting a guy's sack open? And then when he botches the operation, removing both the dude's grapes, the patient begins to speak in falsetto. God help me! These kinds of hijinks and shenanigans may work well as a farce, but Sour Grapes isn't absurd enough to be a farce, and it's not smart enough to be a comedy. Ultimately, Grapes falls far from the fruitful vine of comedy, truly failing as any form of entertainment. After the success and experience Larry David had with Seinfeld, I was surprised to learn that this movie was his follow-up to what was a great and groundbreaking show. This movie had zero depth of character, an overtly sophomoric storyline, and below average performances. The best thing I can say about Sour Grapes is that Steven Webber wasn't terrible. Then, after the run of Curb, another solid show, he gives us Clear History. Again, not silly enough to be a farce, too shallow to be a great comedy. Perhaps the lesson is that David's brand of comedy works better in a short format, in the world of a sitcom, where people never really seem real or have too much depth, and impossible situations are resolved one way or another. In 22 minutes, you're in, you're out. I would have truly hoped that LD would have taken his dark theme to a higher, more evolved, more sophisticated place, given his resources and creative community and creative autonomy. But instead, he kind of takes the easy way, simply repackaging some old characters and situations into cheesy, average movies. Thank God Woody Allen was able to so eloquently build upon what LD had started, but hasn't seemed to finish yet. Sour Grapes? No thanks. I'll take mine fermented and aged in a glass. Hold the cheese.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty powerful, Adam. You really didn't have this definitely left a sour taste in your mouth, so to say.
I had a tough time getting through it. I stuck through it, but oh my God, it just was silly, but not good silly, not fun silly. It was just, I don't know, I didn't get it.
Well, here's the problem with it. I think he's reaching to what he knows best at the time, and at that time it's Seinfeld. So you're watching Steven Webber, who's not awful. And look, so Webber has a lot of range as an actor. I mean, I've seen this guy do comedy. I've seen this guy do drama. He kind of could do anything you want him to do. In this movie, he's doing Jerry Seinfeld.
Yep.
Basically, and that kind of gets annoying. And then you got Craig Bierko, who's, I don't know, what is it? He's like reaching for like a Jim Carrey kind of a thing here. I don't know. It's like I'm watching Ace Ventura half the time, which could get annoying. I didn't think this movie was god awful. I've seen it before, and when I did see it for the first time, like maybe 7 years ago, I had the same feeling, Adam. I was like, what is this piece of shit? I was like, I couldn't take it. I watched it again last week, and I kind of warmed up to it a little bit. I guess mostly because I was just in, that Larry David moment, for the past 10 days and whatnot. But I see what you're saying. Again, and this is going to be a tough review, I think, for all of us, because it's like, at this point, what else is there to say about what Larry David's trying to do here?
Yeah, it's, as I said, I would have been happy if they had raised the stakes and made it just absolutely absurd. If they had gone far enough with it, and it just fell somewhere in this in-between zone. He didn't raise the stakes high enough, but it wasn't a smart comedy. So if it's really going to be more of a slapstick, physical, ridiculous farce, just raise those stakes and push it all the way that direction, and at least commit to that way of telling the story. But coming right off the heels of Seinfeld, even if he's going to regurgitate the same old stuff, you would think that he could take that to the next level. And it felt like,
that's what he needs.
Know better. This would have been before Seinfeld,
You're right. I don't think this movie's awful. It's not great. I did laugh a few times. I didn't have a bad time watching it. As a matter of fact, it was a relatively pleasant experience. But I think you're onto something here. It's like, dude, you're doing Seinfeld. He leaves Seinfeld, obviously, to do something a little bit different. He takes on a new project. It's Sour Grapes. He writes a screenplay. He says to himself, I'm going to write and direct a movie. And it's a perfect opportunity for him to, as you say, raise the stakes, and he doesn't do it here. He just completely falls short. And it's kind of disappointing.
Well said. I agree. Clearly.
Dave, how you feeling?
No, sir, I didn't like it.
You didn't like this movie, huh?
I didn't. No, watching it, all it really made me think about was the extent to which I'm sure, like, some asshole in a suit, because they always, in my mind, they always wear suits because I'm dumb like that. But some asshole in a suit going, just give us more Seinfeld. Seinfeld. Just shut up, David, and give us more Seinfeld, right? Like, and I'm not going to absolve Larry David of responsibility for this film. He's the director, whatever. But I can't help but feel that there was just a lot of pressure on to say, God, just give us Seinfeld. That's the formula, like that's what's been working. So just give us some more of that. Don't get too crazy. Don't get too risky. Just give us a Seinfeld kind of setup, and that'll be good. And I think that's probably where this movie went wrong. So that's all I thought about it.
I'm sure you're right. I'm sure there was a lot of pressure to, capture lightning in a bottle again. And so let's just put everyone in different clothes and bring in a few different actors and just make a 90-minute episode.
Well, what's amazing to me, and this is, I think, pretty consistent, is that whenever Hollywood gets it in their head that they want to do that they want to yeah, let's catch lightning in a bottle again.
Right.
They do it in a way that's just like, really so careful, right? It's like, okay, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do that, and we've proven this works, so we're gonna do this and that, and it's very careful and methodical, and everything is second guessed, and it's overthought. I think.
Right.
I think it's overthought, and it ruins everything. It saps all the danger out of it.
Right. Well, and what's annoying to me about that whole theory, Dave, is that what's obviously working is fresh, new ideas. This is what works. Not the same fucking shit over and over again. It might satisfy, I guess, the money machine, so to say, for a short term. But what's really making the big money are the real original ideas. The ideas that people flock to, like Seinfeld. Seinfeld makes huge money, in syndication because it's an original idea that could be, you could turn generations onto that show.
But I think the problem is you don't know it until it happens, right? Nobody knew.
So there's a danger there.
Yeah, nobody
knew.
I
can tell you, Hollywood looks at it that they're, they like a safe bet, and they really want to. They put money behind things that have already proven successful, and the only way that they see sort of a turn on it or truly something new is actually just taking two movie templates that have not been crossed over before and cross them over. And the example I gave is, take a frat boy sort of format of a movie, like a frat movie, and cross that over with sort of a whodunit crime drama movie format, and you cross them over and you have The Hangover. And then you have a lot of money behind it because that looks like a new idea, but it's actually just two very simple templates that have just never meshed before.
It's the what do you got formula, right? It's all the guys sitting around the boardroom. What do you got? Well, hey, Guardians of the Galaxy was really big. Let's, what other misfit characters do we have kicking around? This was really big. Hey, why don't we mix this with that? And there you go.
Exactly.
Bingo bango, right? Because they say bingo bango. I'm sure that happens.
They actually do.
A big word, yeah.
And then they do that thing where they kind of snap their fingers and slap their hand at the same time.
Crushing it, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Max,
are you crushing it?
We're talking, Sour Grapes. We're talking about, the recycled business of Hollywood, the regurgitation of Hollywood. Hey, man, your screening of Sour Grapes, was this the first time, or have you seen it before? Where are you coming at here? Jump in.
I saw it a long time ago, but I had the exact same experience with this that I had with Clear History. The first 40 minutes or so, I was really enjoying it and laughing out loud. Like the scene where Bierko goes in and he's getting fired by Philip Baker Hall. Like I just love – it's so weird with Larry David because the script – I did a play with a guy who said the script is the star, and I think it was the same thing with this film. I mean, if the best thing about this film was the script, which I don't necessarily believe, but – in those moments, in the moment where he's getting fired by Philip Baker Hall because of the circles on the tennis shoe, I mean, that scene is hilarious because
it is.
They're not talking over each other. That's the thing that's going on in these Larry David movies, especially early on when they're the funniest, is that someone says a line, and then someone says another line, and then someone is like up here, and then someone's up here. And I'm laughing, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm like, these people are ridiculous. This situation is absurd. and yet it's grabbing me, but something happens at the top of the, I would say, second act with both these films that just takes me completely out of it. Like once it got into the and come on guys, you got to admit that the dig at Friends, the opening theme and the opening segment of the Guys and Gals sitcom was fucking inspired. I mean, that's Larry.
Hysterical.
Yeah, that's Larry at NBC saying, "Oh my God, we have to share a night with these fucking people." You know, I mean,
right.
I mean that was pretty great stuff. I mean,
or how who knows, Max, the countless NBC suggestions that were probably thrown his way to make his show maybe a little bit more Friends-like.
Friends-like, totally. It's so funny too because right now I'm watching Friends, and that's because of my wife. It's like this. You know, it's time for my show. So, because I'm always torturing her with Alice, and she's like, I bought the box set, and come on. And it's like, okay, I can kind of see how this was a cultural phenomenon or whatever, but I don't know, man. I actually enjoyed Sour Grapes a lot more than I enjoyed Clear History. I really did. And I really thought the performances were really funny. And like, I see what you're saying, Tom, with Bierko doing a Jim Carrey, but
that's what it was like to me. I did right. Am I
it
not,
felt like a Kramer-esque character, Carrie, like
that over the top,
but for me it was really entertaining. I mean, I really thought he was really funny. I really liked him.
There's also another side to it. Also, I think that television is a very collaborative process. Someone might write the script, but it goes through all kinds of table reads. Actors, especially at a level like Seinfeld, you got 4 writers, you got 4 producers, you got a director, you got the cast. It's really a collaborative art. And movie making can be more solitary in the creation of it. And so I think that maybe, I know for myself, I work better in collaboration. I just work better that way, and I think the results are better. I think Larry's results, LD's results with television were always better, and that's a collaborative process.
Yeah.
The movies, not so much, a little less collaborative.
Let me ask you guys this. Did the classical music bother you in this film?
It's funny you say that, Max, because whenever I hear, especially some of the music he was using, you can't, when you hear the Beethoven, and this happened too in Whatever Works, it's like I think of Kubrick or Clockwork Orange. Yeah, and it honestly takes me out of the moment.
Well, guys, that's all budget shit. That's all free. That particular music is public domain, and so clearly that show did not have any money behind it, and they had no music budget, so they used free music essentially.
Larry music on Curb is all music that you can get that is royalty free. I've heard those. Adam, we were talking about the theme, or
and he's right, Max, because he heard that dumb song. Well, it's not a dumb song. It turns out to be hilarious, but he heard that song on a bank commercial, and it always stuck in his head. And he thought to himself, for Curb Your Enthusiasm, he's like, "There's no way anybody could ever take this show seriously if I'm playing music like this, And he's absolutely right. But here's the interesting thing, though, Max, and you're a big fan of The Sopranos, and David Chase has always said this about HBO. He said that HBO was always more than willing to go the extra mile when it came to music. Now, I could say, well, maybe The Sopranos is it's a different entity. It's a bigger show. Maybe it was more popular, but I don't necessarily think so. I think Curb Your Enthusiasm, as maybe not as popular as Sopranos, would be popular enough for HBO to say, you know what, you could use whatever music you'd want to use. We'd be behind that. And yet it seems Larry just wants to, use this, public domain music. Maybe that's what his vision is. That's the music he wants, right?
I think he wants the shitty music. I think it makes it so funny and weird and like, what are you doing? Like, the shitty music totally assists LD, especially in even Clear History, which is a score, evidently. Because I looked this up, and I'm like, what is going on with Larry music? It's always it sounds so happy and fun and peppy, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, there's this undercurrent of dread, and something's going to crash into a wall, and something's going to go terribly wrong.
Right.
And suddenly the music isn't so fun anymore. It's like he's his own fucking carnival.
what's great to hear from the both of you, Max and Adam, is that you kind of, have wandered through maybe your daily routine humming the Curb theme song or perhaps other little Curb Your Enthusiasm songs. Because I do this too. When I'm like walking down the street, I'm like, like that, or I'm at work and I'm like, like making something to eat. And I'm like, like this is, or something bad happens. Like, yeah, like it would have been perfect to use like some of that, like bad moment music, Max, on our last episode at the end of our last show.
Well, let's hope the editor throws that in.
Hey, if it's public domain.
Well, that I have to look into, and if it is, we'll definitely, definitely check it out.
Now, Tom, can I ask a question?
I definitely. You can ask a question, and I'm going to ask a question after you. But
you ask your question first because my question will come after yours.
Okay. Would anybody here tonight, if they could, if they had the ability, would they blow themselves? Because this is...
the only reason I would say no is because I swear to God, I don't know where my dick has been.
What about you, Pace?
I forget who said this, but I think it was once noted that it's a lot less like getting your dick sucked and a whole lot more like sucking a dick.
That's fucking perfect, man. Craig Bierko in Sour Grapes has the ability to do this, and it was one of, maybe, just visually it was funny, in the film. But Max, what about you?
Listen,
dude?
For the record, just so we're clear, and before we eventually move on to the final film, there were absolutely in both of these movies that we've talked about over the episodes here. There were moments where I laughed. Absolutely, there were moments where I laughed out loud. It wasn't like this was just drudgery and horrible, but a moment here laughing and a moment there laughing to me is not a quality movie. It's like there's fun moments, sure. There's a great little. The way a line is delivered or a visual gag that works. But so I didn't hate these movies. I just did not really find them ultimately entertaining and satisfying.
I hear you. And I agree with Max, too. That scene with Bierko and Philip Baker Hall at the beginning when Hall's just like, telling him that he's a lousy soul designer. Soul designer. It's really funny. There's an exchange there that's just absolutely brilliant. And you're right, Max. It's like it's on paper, that exchange. You can tell that it's thoroughly calculated. It's not an improvised thing. And they're not talking over each other. They're just kind of like going back and forth, and it really works well. And it is probably the funniest moment in the movie. Max, your question. Let's hear it.
Well, first of all, before I had a giant wine gut, I was able to kiss the tip of my penis, but I only did that once. And that was way, way too self-indulgent for me. My question is this. Dave Pace, I haven't talked to you in a while. I just went on Facebook, and I always find you so fascinating. And I know this doesn't have much to do with Larry David, but let's consider this the hijinks portion of the show. You just updated, or maybe it was yesterday, about not trusting the cops. So
I
what's
believe
going
I said
on there?
I believe I said fuck the police.
Fuck the police. Okay,
Yeah.
So what's going on with fuck the police?
Oh, well, I don't like the police.
Okay, but have you ever had a policeman in your family? Do you
No.
think all policemen are bad?
Well, obviously as people, as individual human beings, they're all human beings. So some of them are, I'm sure, bound to be wonderful, lovely human beings.
Would you prefer a policeless world? Would you prefer that the whole department be eliminated where you live?
No, I'd prefer that I felt safe with police and that they were actually here to protect me. And
So you don't
or maybe
think
less
any
about me,
policeman
because
is
I actually
there to
think I'm, as a white guy, they are pretty much there to protect me. Like, I actually feel fairly well.
This is because you have a
I'm
black son.
No, I don't.
You don't have a black son?
I have a black brother.
Oh, that's right, a black brother. I'm sorry.
But yeah,
did something happen to your black brother?
No, my black brother's probably like more racist than white people I know.
But Dave, what you post on Facebook about the police?
Yeah. I don't like cops.
What happened between you and cops for you to say that?
There's like nothing. I don't really have I don't have a personal really bad history.
But Dave, you posted on Facebook, "Fuck the police." So
I don't like cops. Well, because see, it's when they kill black people, or poor people, or innocent, just normal people, and they murder them in the streets, or they murder them in a Walmart for carrying a BB gun, and in an open carry state where it's perfectly legal.
These are current events.
This has happened. Like, I mean, this just happened. So
we're talking about Ferguson, Missouri, right? Missouri.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I forget. I apologize. I wasn't really prepared to talk about this tonight, but
which is why I wanted to ask you, because I like you and I'm interested in you and I just want to know what was going on with the situation, you and cops. Because I come from a family where cops abound. I mean, dad was a cop, stepdad was a cop. I have a different perspective, and I've never had a bad experience with the police. But I know that there are pretty fucked up cops out there, so I want you to illuminate us on the whole fuck the police thing.
Well, it concerns me, I guess, and I don't want to get maybe too personal, but I used to work with a lot of cops in my old day job, in a past life.
What was that day job?
I used to be in banking, for security.
Security.
Yeah,
That's a tough racket.
I was an operations man. Well, I don't know. Anyway, I was an operations manager for corporate security for a bank.
Okay.
And a couple banks actually, a couple big banks, including a big U.S. bank. And so that, I worked with cops a lot there, and I didn't really like a lot of them. And I just think I'm just naturally like opposed. I just naturally don't get along.
And I know you're a Canadian, and it's okay. It's okay to be Canadian. But let me ask you this. If you were to look at like a Marine of the U.S. Army, a U.S. Marine and a U.S. Cop, what they see every day, what they go through every day, the detritus, the filth, the fury, all of the horrible things that go down, and how that wears down on the brain and
sure.
I mean, seriously, I think personally, because if you look at the suicide rate, especially of our soldiers here in the States, we've got a real problem here because these guys are not being paid nearly enough. They're under the highest stress. None of us will ever know the stress that they are under, ever.
I don't know. Their job's much more dangerous than being a cop.
Yeah.
I also think there's an unfortunate truth that a lot of these military guys that you are exactly describing come back to the States and become cops.
Yeah.
And that does not help us, Dave. That does not help us.
I used to have a lot of guys work for me who are ex-military.
Is that true?
I worked with a lot of ex-military guys. I've had a lot of ex-military guys work for me. I made it almost a policy not to hire ex-military because it was invariably a problem. I used to work for actually a former Navy SEAL, and he liked to yell a lot. That was his thing. I think just ultimately with me and cops, what it comes down to is that I don't trust cops. I don't necessarily think that they're there for my best interest.
You're saying all cops, Dave. You're saying all cops you don't trust. I think that's an unhealthy view, Dave. And I'm going to tell you an example. LAPD, it's a very tough department. There are a lot of corrupt police officers. There are daily stories about trouble. We just had a mental deficient. Counselor will know all about this. We had a mental deficient on the freeway a cop was pounding on. But here's what I saw one day. Last Sunday morning, I'm walking my dogs, okay? There's a black and white out in front of this church. They're talking to some homeless people. I stopped so my dogs could pee because I want to listen into what the cop is saying to the homeless. He was saying, how you doing today? What do you need? Is there anything I can do to help? Next thing you know, this other homeless dude comes out of the alley, all right? And he's all messed up. You can tell he's on something, something's going on. And the cop goes, hey, and points at him, and he stops. And you can see the fear in this guy's face. You can hear his heart pounding through his chest. And he goes, what are you doing? You know, you're about to run into traffic because we have a very busy street here in North Hollywood that I live off of, okay? So the guy goes, I'm just going to see my friend. And the cop goes, all right, but why don't you go up and use the light because you're going to get hit because this is a very busy street. And the guy's like, no, I'm okay. All right, but I'm just saying, just, you know, look both ways because you weren't looking both ways before you crossed the street. Something as simple as that, Dave. This fucking guy didn't listen to the cop, wanted to get away from the cop, shot across the street, and the cop didn't even give him a ticket for jaywalking. It was the boldest thing I've ever seen. The guy jaywalked, which I thought was illegal. But now I'm like, oh, well, I guess you can just walk across the street. You don't have to go up to the light because the officer just let the guy go. I know it's an isolated example, but you're saying that all cops should not be trusted. You're saying that all cops are bad. But does that
I'm not saying
grab
cops
you at
are
all?
bad.
Does that
I'm saying don't trust them, right? Like I think on an individual level, right? There's who people are as individuals, and then there's who people are when they don a uniform and they sublimate their personality and they become part of an apparatus.
Right.
And I think that things happen to you when you're given that kind of power. I think that scary things can happen to you when you're given that kind of power. I used to
erosion of the brain.
Well, maybe, but like what I know is what I've seen, right? So on top of that, right? So I mean, for example, right? I was involved in planning for the G20 summit in Toronto a couple of years back. Kind of a big deal. And I spent, a good week with hundreds and hundreds of cops. And we had an intelligence unit in our building. We had all that stuff. And I was liaising with all these people. I work with these people day in, day out, every single day. I was living in a boardroom. I had to sleep in a boardroom because the whole thing was fenced in. Anyway, it was craziness. And I don't know, man, there were like, the vast majority, it was like, man, I just want to get my overtime money and get the hell out of here, and I hope nothing bad happens. Like that was generally the attitude. But when shit kind of started going down and things got a little rowdy, you could really see it was like there were guys.
What shit was going down? What shit was going down where you live? Was there shit going down where you live?
In the G20 summit? Yeah, they were fucking rioting and burning shit.
Oh.
So yeah, shit kind of went down. I mean, I don't know. That's, there's probably maybe, I don't know, 60,000 protesters in the street. Huge fucking. Anyway, it was a problem. And so I was inside, like basically cop central when all that was going down. And there were guys like just chomping at the bit, like man, I want to get out there and fuck these guys up, And
really?
I can get that. Yeah, man.
That is so
not a lot.
That is so
not
unfortunate. That makes
and I
me
even
sick.
get it. I get it, Max, though I kind of get it because when you're in that bunker mentality with them, like, because I'm in with these guys, man. I am there, right? I am there. I am in with these guys. Nobody is going to differentiate me from them. And I remember, like, very distinctly, there was a day where we didn't block off this whole fucking tunnel into our building because we were told it was going to be totally safe and there's no problem. And then they found fucking people in the tunnels trying to get in. So we had to, like, go in with, like, plywood and board up these fucking tunnels. And I was scared shitless because I'm, like, boarding up this shit. And I've got, like, riot cops, like, standing behind me. And the plan was, they're like, if we see anybody coming down that tunnel, we're going to gas the whole fucking tunnel and run upstairs. That was the plan. And so I got, like, a gas mask on, and I'm fucking, like, putting plywood up. And I'd heard earlier in the day that they had the protesters had broken into a Scotia bank and hit a fucking security guard with a brick. And I'm sitting there with this gas mask on, and I'm going, some fucking asshole is going to come running down this tunnel and do me upside the fucking head with a brick. And I can probably articulate his grievances with our government and with the G20 far better than he can. He will never know that about me. He will never understand that about me. And that was a fucked up moment, right? Like that was one of those moments because I quit that job after the G20. I walked away because probably a lot
And
because
the
of moments like that.
The G20, for people who don't know, was
So the G20 is a summit of the G20 nations. So this is a meeting between like Barack Obama, Nicolas Sarkozy,
right.
like all of the world leaders of the 20 most prosperous nations on the planet are all in one place. So imagine just the security that goes into that, right? Like it's mind-boggling, the stuff I saw that weekend. I saw Obama come in a helicopter, Marine One kind of thing coming down. He was, fucking the Prime Minister of the UK, George Brown, was hitching a ride with him that day. Like, it happened like right, fucking 200 feet from me, it was a fucking eye-opening experience because I really started to realize that distinguishing myself from my job was getting harder to do, right? Like I could always kind of trying to hang on to any sort of counterculture cred when you're like fucking, got a gas mask on and you're standing in line with riot cops. It doesn't work, right?
I see where you're coming from there on the counterculture thing.
Like there's a dissonance that doesn't match up, and it really messed me up because I'll tell you something. When I was in there with them, when things were scary, like there was a few times where things were scary and we weren't really sure what was going to happen, and we weren't really sure if like, man, maybe some real serious shit's going to happen. And I recall feeling like on their side, like we're in this together, right? Like those fucking people out there are not going to see me any differently, even though I don't see my job as I'm here to suppress dissent. That wasn't my job. My job was I had people to protect who had to stay working in this building because we needed engineers and fucking computer guys to run all the fucking servers that run everything, right? They needed to be there. We couldn't relocate them. So we needed to have a presence there to protect them. That was my job. And that's how I tried to look at it. And then when all was said and done and we got out of that experience, seeing a lot of the news reports, because at the time I was just buried in because I was writing all the intelligence reports for our executives at the bank and all that shit. That was my job. And when I got out and I started hearing about, these fucking, secret arrests and protesters' houses getting raided at fucking 4 a.m. and they're dragged off to, these secret illegal prisons. They set up it was normally used as a film studio and they used it as a prison, like a temporary prison to just like throw all these illegally detained protesters who were all arrested illegally, and a lot of them beaten, a lot of them harmed. And finding out about all that and realizing that I was there and kind of felt like I was on the wrong side of that. It was I don't think I ever really recovered from that. I quit my job. And I mean I eventually went to work for another fucking soul-sucking bank. Not quite as bad as the one before, but when you have a weird skill set like that, there's not a lot you can do.
Now listen, one more question, Tom. Dave, since your last appearance on the cutting room, are you happier? Are you more stabilized? Because I know there were some moments where you went down some pretty dark roads. Where are you at today? I mean, it feels pretty good to be published. It feels pretty good to be published in a magazine, right?
There has to be vindication there too, Dave.
Yeah, there's a bit of a fuck you because there's people who told me that I wasn't going to, right? People told me that everything I'd had published up to that point was just sort of a pity. They took pity on me or whatever. Right. So there was some vindication, I guess, in that. But I don't know. No, I mean, I'm.
You're no happier today than you were the last time you were on the show.
I probably am. I mean, I'm in like so I
You still have your family. You still have your wife. You still have your kids. You still have your black brother.
I go to group therapy now.
Okay.
A couple times a month, and
Still have your black brother.
Is that enough, Adam? That he's going to group therapy a couple times a month?
Sure, that's usually how often you go to group therapy.
Okay. Now, is the group annoying,
Can
Dave?
I
or are
just
these people...
can I just say 3 super quick things on this subject?
Sure.
Okay, number one, honestly, I don't even understand why you guys have cops in Canada. Number two is on a whole. I got to say, I have some very strong opinions on this whole thing that we were just discussing here with police. And Dave, I got to be honest with you, I'm kind of on your side with it, with the exception that I think that the problem is more of a systemic problem as opposed to an individual problem, and all of this ridiculous things that we see and we hear about in the news, and I've had bad personal experiences with LAPD, is systemic. And I know plenty of good cops too, but I think it goes all the way to training and psychology and hiring the right people with the ability to actually do the job as it was intended, not what it's become, which is some kind of pseudo-militarized shoot first, ask later kind of thing. Ridiculous. And number 3 is right now, yes, I am now urinating in a bag in my car.
Yes.
Oh God, that is so.
Well,
that's a relief.
2 quick things. I think Bill Maher said it the best on one of his shows recently. He said, he goes, I'm white and I'm afraid to walk down the street at this point when it comes to cops. And 2, Dave, I love when you write. Like, you're an excellent writer. You've contributed some of the best stuff on this show. With that being said, I am ready to hear some Dave Pace, because he is going to introduce our next film, and that is Woody Allen's 2009 film, Whatever Works. Larry David is the star. Let's talk some Woody Allen, guys. It's the first time ever here. Dave, take it for us, dude.
Sour grapes? Sour grapes. All right. Okay, listen, guys. I like Larry David. I do. I swear. He was a pioneer, and he revolutionized the modern television sitcom. Tom, you said it last week. The guy had a vision, and he genuinely changed TV. I was a huge fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Max and I used to get together with our respective significant others and have Curb watching evenings. We even wrote a spec script for the show with a supporting role for Judge Reinhold. I'm telling you, Max and I would even hum the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme during our many stumble-bum adventures to punctuate the very moment when the general atmosphere would turn against us. To be clear, I am a Larry David fan. Cook, can we just do the Curb theme real quick here? Take it with me?
Oh, sorry. And...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, ready? And... Bum, bum, bum.
Thank you.
I can't believe you brought up that script. I totally forgot we wrote that.
We did. We wrote a spec script. Cheryl runs off on up to the love ride on the back of a motorcycle and leaves Larry alone to try to buy a baby present.
Yeah, it was some of the most fun I've ever had with you, and I completely blocked it from my memory. So find the file and post it on the cutting room site.
I will. But listen, if I may just cut to, I was surprised to learn that this movie was his follow-up to what was a great and groundbreaking show. This movie had zero depth of character, an overtly sophomoric storyline, and below average performances. The best thing I can say about Sour Grapes is that Steven Webber wasn't terrible. Then, after the run of Curb, another solid show, he gives us Clear History. Again, not silly enough to be a farce, too shallow to be a great comedy. Perhaps the lesson is that David's brand of comedy works better in a short format, in the world of a sitcom, where people never really seem real or have too much depth, and impossible situations are resolved one way or another. In 22 minutes, you're in, you're out. I would have truly hoped that LD would have taken his dark theme to a higher, more evolved, more sophisticated place, given his resources and creative community and creative autonomy. But instead, he kind of takes the easy way, simply repackaging some old characters and situations into cheesy, average movies. Thank God Woody Allen was able to so eloquently build upon what LD had started, but hasn't seemed to finish yet. Sour grapes? No thanks. I'll take mine fermented and aged in a glass. Hold the cheese.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty powerful, Adam. You really didn't have this definitely left a sour taste in your mouth, so to say.
The chase. LD's unfortunate issue is that he's become something of a one-note song, a stale chord. All right, that's 3 notes, but LD is a true artist, and as such, he is able to express his unique point of view, his theme, consistently throughout his body of work. David accomplishes this. However, what separates, in my book, the average artist from the extraordinary is their ability to communicate this theme through an evolving process, one that changes and grows. A true artist can repackage and retell their theme, their same message, in new and different and exciting ways. Larry don't do so good with this. Clear History and Sour Grapes, the 2 movies that he penned of the 3 on this exploration of LD, are just simple regurgitations of Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld episodes. As we discussed last week, Clear History is an elongated version of an episode of Curb with lots of HBO money and fun cameos. And I love Michael Keaton, I love Ham, but there was just nothing new. David's reoccurring theme is just simple and obvious. At their very core, humans are selfish, greedy assholes who make ridiculous, impulsive decisions and then spend the rest of their days paying for it. Well, to his credit, I think he's right on target with that. But when Woody Allen tackles essentially the same theme in Whatever Works, he just kind of nails it. Allen finds in his own unique voice and style a philosophical dialogue on the subject of this self-centered human egotism. Sour Grapes, by way of contrast, is... I had a tough time getting through it. I stuck through it, but oh my God, it just was silly, but not good silly, not fun silly. It was just, I don't know, I didn't get it.
Well, here's the problem with it. I think he's reaching to what he knows best at the time, and at that time it's Seinfeld. So you're watching Steven Webber, who's not awful. And look, so Webber has a lot of range as an actor. I mean, I've seen this guy do comedy, I've seen this guy do drama. He kind of could do anything you want him to do. In this movie, he's doing Jerry Seinfeld.
Yep.
Basically, and that kind of gets annoying. And then you got Craig Bierko, who's, I don't know, what is it? He's like reaching for like a Jim Carrey kind of a thing here. I don't know. It's like I'm watching Ace Ventura half the time, which could get annoying. I didn't think this movie was god awful. I've seen it before, and when I did see it for the first time, like maybe 7 years ago, I had the same feeling, Adam. I was like, what is this piece of shit? I was like, I couldn't take it. I watched it again last week, and I kind of warmed up to it a little bit. I guess mostly because I was just in, that Larry David moment, for the past 10 days and whatnot. But I see what you're saying. Again, and this is going to be a tough review, I think, for all of us, because it's like at this point,
nothing more than an elongated version of an episode of Seinfeld. Steven Webber is a variation of Jerry Seinfeld to Craig Bierko's Kramer. The plot is vapid and unbelievable, and I shudder to think of even breaking it down. Just suffice to say, David's ongoing theme is received loud and clear. One selfish, greedy bastard pitted against the other selfish, greedy bastard. But in the case of Sour Grapes, the plot device is so thin, it's so ridiculous that the payoff is really just a big bowl of who the fuck cares. Listen, for those who haven't seen it, Webber gives 2 quarters to his cousin Bierko, who wins a moderately large jackpot with him. Webber believes he's due his share. Bierko disagrees. You see where this is going, right? Out of frustration, Webber in a passive-aggressive manner sets in motion a wholly unbelievable chain of events that continue to escalate in a ridiculous fashion. At one point, while insisting that he drops the subject, Webber's wife points out that he's a brain surgeon and therefore does not need the money. Yet later we see Webber operating on a man's testicles. What? Why is a brain surgeon cutting a guy's sack open? And then when he botches the operation, removing both the dude's grapes, the patient begins to speak in falsetto. God help me! These kinds of hijinks and shenanigans may work well as a farce, but Sour Grapes isn't absurd enough to be a farce, and it's not smart enough to be a comedy. Ultimately, Grapes falls far from the fruitful vine of comedy, truly failing as any form of entertainment. After the success and experience Larry David had with Seinfeld,